بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, it always feels good to be back in HadithDisciple with our brothers and sisters for the sake of Allah, friends and companions. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And it's always good to refresh and to rejuvenate relationships that Allah Azza wa Jalla has allowed you to establish over the years. And that's the sign of quality. The sign and the mark of quality is that something survives time. Years go by and it's still there. Certain things need to be polished. Certain things need to be recalibrated. Certain things need to be adjusted or augmented or updated. But the frame, the asl, if it was good from day one, is going to remain. And not only is it just going to remain, but it's going to age well. It's going to age well, and it's going to get better through the years if something is of good quality from the beginning. And this is one of the greatest blessings that we enjoy and experience as Muslims in al-Islam is ni'matul ukhuwah, the blessing of brotherhood. And obviously brotherhood is a relationship, and as we said before, relationships, they go through things, they go through time. And oftentimes the seasons, the years, and things that takes place during those times can be some type of a harshness, like a product, whether it be a car or a piece of jewelry or a building or anything like this. And if it was of good construction, of good craft, of good quality from day one, then it's not going to do anything but get better through time with the necessary maintenance. So this is something which you realize with regards to, you see a brother that you may haven't seen in a year or a month. Some brothers 10 years, 5 years. Some brothers you may see 10 years. And if the relationship was good from the beginning, it will remain so. It will remain so. And if it wasn't that strong, wasn't that good from the beginning, then obviously the test of time is going to weaken. And maybe certain times or oftentimes something may be wiped out and destroyed. So with that being said, we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to preserve His blessings upon us all. And from those blessings is the blessing of brotherhood in al-Islam. With that being said, alhamdulillah, a few things that I want to share with you brothers tonight. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The first is something that we have to make sure we're doing the right way. We have to have a checklist. And that checklist is what one of the scholars of Islam who lived and died in the 5th century said.
Assalamu alaikum. Sisters, please, we have the partition here. You could come to the brother side. Sisters, come to the brother side. The partition is here. Thank you.
He says this great scholar of Islam, he lived and died almost years ago in the 5th century. He says al-wajibu ala hamil al-ilmi an yanshud al-ziyadata walau kabir وقد نص علينا القرآن الكريم والرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قصة موسى عليه السلام في طلبه علم ما لم يعلم عند عبد الله الخضر عليهما السلام. ولذا قال قتادة ولو كان أحد يكتفي من العلم بشيء لاكتفى موسى عليه ولكنه قال هل أتبعك ولا غروة بين المسلمين هذه الحكمة. He says is that it is obligatory upon one who learns something. It is mandatory upon whoever learns something and you bear the knowledge that you've learned, is that you have to remain hungry to learn more. You can never suffice yourself with what you've learned. You can't just think and say and behave in a manner in which you feel that you've obtained enough knowledge and I don't have to study anymore. Or I'm saying you may not have the desire to drive forward anymore, but the review, and like I just said about those relationships, the maintenance. in which a person feels that his knowledge is enough and I don't have to seek knowledge and learn more. This is a problem that many of us have. Imams of masjids, reciters of the Quran, sheikhs, scholars, students of knowledge, brothers aspiring to be students of knowledge, and 9 to 5 layman Muslims. And oftentimes, horrible words. We utter these horrible words. And most of us, alhamdulillah, don't necessarily say it with our tongues, but our behavior proves that that's how we feel deep down inside. Is that I don't have to learn anymore. And this can be manifested in age. I'm old. I'm too old to learn. This can be manifested in race. I come from this country. My grandfather is an imam. I don't have to sit and learn and listen to what you're saying. This is manifested in a sex. I'm a woman. I don't have time to study. I don't have to learn. I'm a housewife, or I'm a man. This is manifested in class. I'm wealthy. I'm affluent. I'm a supporter, a financier of the masjid. I donate. I don't have to sit in the class with the normal people. And there are many other forms of this incorrect understanding and this incorrect behavior. Once more, oftentimes it's manifested in age. Because I'm of a certain age, I don't have to learn anymore. I shouldn't try to learn anymore, or I can't learn anymore. Or oftentimes it is manifested with race and genealogy and tribe. You're learning because you have to learn because you come from this race or this race or this tribe. Me? No. I've learned this in my country. My grandparents were Muslims. My great-grandfathers were Muslims. My father in my village is a mullah. I don't have to learn and study. I come to America for money. Or this is manifested with regards to gender and sex. I'm a man, so I don't have to learn. I work and take care of you. I'm a woman, so I don't have to learn anything because I'm a woman. Men do that. Brothers sit in the classes. Or it can be manifested in class. Wealthy, affluent, poor, rich, whatever the case may be. And there lies no doubt that the shaitan, waliyadu billah, he has a great bag of tricks. Many different ways that he gets us to fall off of the path. And everything, rather, one may say that the trick and the trap of the shaitan oftentimes isn't a frontal attack. Oftentimes it's from the flank. And it's some type of trickery being used. Whether you say it and behave in that way, or you just behave in that way. So he says, and I'm not going to mention the name of the scholar yet. He died nearly 1,000 years ago. He says it's mandatory. One who has knowledge, who has obtained knowledge, who has gotten some type of knowledge, to always look for more knowledge and to remain hungry. He then says, the Quran tells us, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they both explain to us, or the Quran tells us, and then the Messenger, he explains to us the story of Musa alayhi salam. And he had so much knowledge, he got revelation from Allah, and he still wanted to seek more knowledge and to go visit Khidr and learn from Khidr. He says, and this is why many of the people they would say, is that if anyone could take that position, I don't have to learn, I shouldn't learn, I can't learn anymore, it would have been Musa. If it was okay to say that, or to behave like that, if anyone had the allowance, it would have been Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And this was stated by Qatada, rahimahullah ta'ala, we know from the Imams of Tafsir of the Tabi'een, the disciples of the companions. So he says, لو كان أحد يكتفي من العلم بشيء. If there was anyone that could say, I have enough of this, and they could suffice themselves with some type of knowledge, it would have been Musa alayhi salam. But that's not what Musa said. Musa said, هل أتبعك? He says, can I follow you? He asked Khidr, who's better? Who has a higher status? There's no doubt. Musa alayhi salam, there's no doubt he's going to trump him. But there were certain things, and there were certain aspects, and there were certain pieces of knowledge and information, certain things of wisdom that Khidr had that Musa was not given. And Musa humbly asked him, he said, هل أتبعك? Let me follow you and let me learn from you. Yes, a tremendous lesson of humility when it comes to learning. Of humility when it comes to learning, and never ever sufficing yourself with what you think that you've obtained. Now before we move forward, if this is the case, he says, hamilul ilm, one who's a real scholar, one who's an actual student of knowledge, someone who's learned something, he can never ever, or she can never ever lose their hunger. Then what about someone who hasn't never, or they've never studied properly, and they've never learned properly in the United States or in another country? You've never been hamidul ilm. So how can you take the position and the attitude, I don't have to learn, I should learn, or at least I can't learn because I work so much. I can't learn because I'm busy. I can't learn because I'm old, because I have children, so on and so on and so forth. Does work hinder you from learning? No question about that. Does age have an effect upon your mind, your memory? There's no doubt about that. Can children come in the way with your free time? No doubt about that. But there's nothing that's going to swallow and take all 24 hours out of the day from you. Nothing. Nothing. Not even sleep. Not even sleep. You may want to stay up for 24 hours, but if your body isn't made for that rigorous staying up, it's going to crash itself. So no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're involved in, there's going to be some time in which you have 5 minutes to read, 10 minutes to read, 20 minutes to listen to a lecture, let alone an hour that you use to watch a movie or play a video game or play physical sports or talk about politics or eat and drink and laugh and whatever you do. So therefore, if that's a student of knowledge who has actually learned something, and that's Musa alayhi salam, who had what he had, then what about us? Who we only have a little bit of knowledge, if anything, or I never even learned. I never even studied. I never learned Islam the proper way. I learned certain things which were cultural. And alhamdulillah, Islam is not against all culture. It's not true. The Prophet ﷺ, he did not abolish everything that Quraysh did. He didn't abolish everything that the Sahaba previously did before Islam. He didn't abolish everything. There were many cultural practices that he allowed to keep. He allowed them to keep. The Quran affirms those cultural practices. And while others, of course, were totally abolished. And the same applies today. Many people, they go to the extreme and they say, well, this is a cultural masjid, or they're practicing cultural Islam, so on and so forth. Everything that this Muslim brother is doing from Bangladesh or West Africa or wherever he comes from doesn't mean that it's bad. And it doesn't mean that everything is bid'ah and everything is wrong. That's not true. They come from Muslims. There's knowledge. There's ilm. But, of course, many things have become mixed. There's no doubt about that. And as I just said about the test of time, someone says, my grandparents are Muslims, what are you going to tell me? My great-great-great-grandfather was a Muslim mujahid on alim. What can you tell me? That's the proof that this person uses. But in actuality, it's a proof against you. And that's because over the 500 years that Islam was in your country, or the 1,000 years, or the 700 years, how many things have happened? How many ups and downs, and how much dust and wear and tear has taken place over those generations? Of course, much. Bid'ah, ignorance, non-Muslims taking over, colonizing, and the list goes on. The death of scholars. So in actuality, due to the fact that your great-great-grandfather was a great Muslim scholar, that's a proof that you need to study more. And due to the fact that Islam was always in your bloodline is a proof that you need to learn more. Because people become relaxed and complacent. The longer a person has a thing, the more at ease a person feels. And that's the reality of life. That's the reality of life. You've been married to your wife for 40 years. You have the same type of romance, the same type of joyful spirit when you were courting her to getting married to her. Sweet 16. Of course you don't. And that's because you've been married to her for 40 years. We have kids, we have grandchildren. She's not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. So you become laxed. You become complacent. It's not the same as you having the necessity of getting something and keeping that thing. So oftentimes time can wear down on you. So in actuality, that's the opposite. Due to the fact that you come from this country and it's a long lineage of Muslims, that's the proof that you need to refresh and you need to update it. Everyone understand this? I don't think anyone is going to disagree with this. Now, the author, he says, for this reason, it's not strange, nothing is strange or weird, is that this wisdom had become widespread among the Muslims. The necessity of continuing to study and continuing to learn and not to suffice yourself with knowledge. He says here, أطلب العلم من المهدي إلى اللحد وحكمة أخرى تقول لا يزال المرء عالما ما طلب العلم فإذا ظن أنه علم فقد جهل وقال ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما منهمان لا تنقضي نهمتهما طالب علم وطالب دنيا. وقيل لابن المبارك إلى متى تطلب العلم؟ قال حتى الممات إن شاء الله. وسئل أبو عمرو بن العلاء حتى متى كذا، هكذا مكتوب، متى يحسن بالمرء أن يتعلم؟ فقال ما دامت تحسن به الحياة. وسئل سفيان بن عيينة من أحوج الناس إلى طلب العلم؟ قال أعلمهم. Allahu Akbar. He says the wisdoms that have been passed down from the Muslims go as it follows. Number one, he said, I will seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And that's something that we say in our culture, from the what? The cradle to the grave. Another, he said, listen carefully to these words. He says, a man will be learned as long as he learns. A person will be considered to be learned as long as he's a learner. And the moment a person stops learning, he's now beginning to become ignorant. He's now left the realm of being a learned person. Listen to these profound words. A person who's mastered a science will be a master of that science as long as he practices it and learns and studies and takes it to the next level. The moment that he thinks or feels or says, I have enough, he's now become ignorant. And this does not negate the fact of teaching. This does not negate the fact that there are levels of knowledge. Someone who's been studying something for 20 years is not going to be studying the ABCs for the rest of his life. You keep going higher and higher. You keep digging deeper and deeper. But the concept that the hunger must remain. And just think about when you eat food. You've had your main course, you had the appetizers, the hors d'oeuvres, and now you want dessert. Now you want coffee, you want tea. But as far as food, you're full. You don't have no desire to eat any more food. But there's room in your belly, and there's also a desire and a taste for something sweet, or something cold, or some coffee and some tea. But the actual food is what? You say, I'm done, I'm full. Everyone understand this? So you don't have to keep studying the same thing over and over again. You don't have to keep studying rudimentary things over and over again, but keep learning somehow, some way. And if you don't do that, then at least practice on what you've already obtained. He says here, Ibn Abbas, he said, and obviously this is the Mukhtasar, this is a summarized version of the book that we haven't mentioned yet. He says the two people whose appetite will never be fulfilled. The student of knowledge and the student of the dunya. The seeker of ilm, of Quran and Sunnah, and the seeker of money and dunya and prestige and status. It's never ever enough. There's an internal hole inside of him that can't be filled. He has a palace, he wants a second. He has gold, silver, pearls, diamonds, rubies, he wants more. He has 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 men under his control, he needs more. You conquer a country, an island, a land, we need more. It never ever stops. Moving forward, Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, rahimahullah, he was asked, until when will you seek knowledge? And Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak was from the greatest scholars of Islam. He was a man whom some of the ulama said, جُمِعَتْ فِيهِ خِصَالُ الْخَيْرِ. They said all virtues Allah blessed him with. Everything. He was a mujahid fi sabilillah. He was a warrior. Fearless and courageous. He was jawad. He was very generous with his wealth. He was alim. He was a learned man. He was abid. He was a worshipper. He was a zahid. He abstained the worldly life. جُمِعَتْ فِيهِ خِصَالُ الْخَيْرِ. All good Allah had blessed him with. And they asked him, until when will you seek knowledge? He said, until death, inshallah. Until I die. Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, he was asked, when should a person stop, or until when? How long does a person continue to learn and study? He says, as long as his life is good. As long as you have the health that allows you to study, then keep studying. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, listen to this statement, and this is one of my favorites here. He says, Man ahwajun nas ila talab al-ilm. He was asked, who needs to study the most? If there are any brothers, and alhamdulillah, there are some brothers who are learned, brothers who are imams, scholars, they watch the channel and they listen, and alhamdulillah, they take some benefit. We met some of them in the UK. Many imams, brothers in the United States, we meet them from time to time. We'll be shocked. We're shocked, when they come on and says, I saw the video, I benefited from the video. Am I making this up? It's reality. So those who are listening, who have status and position of ilm, please take this advice. Sufyan ibn Uyayna, he was asked, Men ahwajun nas. He says, who deserves to study the most? Who needs to study the most? Who needs to learn the most? He said, a'lamuhum. Those who have the most knowledge from among them. The most learned men, they need to study more than others. That's profound wisdom. Who needs knowledge more than anyone else? Those who have the most knowledge. Just stop and think about that. Let that settle on your mind. Man ahwaju nas ila talab al-ilm. Who deserves, who has the greatest need and necessity to seek knowledge? He says those who have the most knowledge. And it's not just for factual information. It's not just about learning things and memorizing more things, but it's also about setting a precedent, being a leader. The people, they see you, they watch you, and they observe you. As a wise man once said, a non-Muslim, he says you shouldn't worry about your children not listening to you all of the time. That shouldn't be your biggest worry, like most of us. Son, listen. Daughter, listen. You never listen. You're hard-headed. You're stubborn. Sit down. Be quiet. That's what we say to our children. He said, but you should be more worried about your children watching you all of the time. That should worry you the most. Kids don't always listen, but they always watch and observe. Always. Even if you don't realize it. Subconsciously, they pay attention to your actions. And you may think that they don't understand because they're kids, or they're stupid, or they're dumb, or they don't get it, or they're slow, or you're getting by them and you're hiding it to them. You never know what Allah places in their eyes, their ears, and in their hearts. You don't know what they can feel and what they can see and what they can hear. So this concept of you being a leader, you being a learner, you may not necessarily need this piece of information, but you need to lead by example. And if the imam of the masjid, the sheikh of the center, the one who knows the Quran, if he's reviewing it and studying it, then what about me? And we know the actions speak louder than words. It then says, قِيلَ لِلْمَأْمُونَ أَيَحْسُنُ بِالشَّيْخِ أَنْ يَتَعَلَّمَ فَقَالَ إِنْ كَانَ الْجَهْلُ يَعِيبُهُ فَتَعَلُّمْ يَحْسُنُ بِهِ. Al-Ma'mun, one of the leaders of the Muslims of the past, he was asked, should an old person learn? Should an old person learn? He says, in kana al-jahlu, he says, if ignorance is a blemish and a fault, then knowledge is going to be a beautiful thing on him. If this is a stain on his clothes, then the clothes being white and pristine is only going to look good. In other words, the old person can't lose by learning. He can't lose by learning. And there's nothing worse than being an old fool. There's no doubt about that. Being old and ignorant and not learning. It's nothing worse than that. It's the ugliest. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ has explained to us about some of the people who have a specific punishment on the Day of Judgment. Allah Azza wa Jal won't speak to them. Nah. They won't be purified of their sins. Allah will not look towards them. From those people, the Prophet ﷺ says, Ushaymitin Zanin. He says, is an aged fornicator. Someone who's old, someone whose beard is white and black, salt and pepper, and he's still chasing women. Still chasing girls. He's still a zani. In other words, zina is always haram, all the time. It's haram for a 16-year-old to do it. It's haram for a 19-year-old to do it. It's haram for a 30-year-old to do it. But perhaps we can make some type of excuse for a 19-year-old making zina. His desires are roaring and raging. He's just learning about life. Person just hit puberty. Boom, bang. Women, girls, pornography. Make some type of excuse. He hasn't mastered his desires yet. He hasn't tasted the bitter results of following his desires and lusts. He doesn't have children yet. He has no kids. He doesn't have a daughter. But someone who's been through life, married, divorced, someone who has children, he has his own daughters walking around, someone who has granddaughters, someone who has seen this president come, this president go, this masjid come, this masjid go. He's been experienced through life, and he's still following his lusts. That proves that his heart is filthy, because he hasn't learned anything and he's an old fool. And it's uglier to be older and a fool than to be a young fool. And that's why people make stereotypes. Young people don't have no knowledge, and old people have all of the knowledge. It's a reality. Wherever you go, you're young, you can't be the speaker. You're old, you're the speaker. And this is why they base this stereotype. This is what they base this stereotype upon. So he says, if ignorance is a bad thing for an old person, then knowledge is going to be nothing but what? A good thing. It's not going to do anything but help him out even more. Moving forward. وقال مالك بن أنس لا ينبغي أن يكون أو لا ينبغي لأحد يكون عنده العلم أن يترك التعلم. Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said, anyone who has knowledge should never leave off learning. If he has ilm, he should continue to learn. The author, he says, وكان صلف الأمة حريصين على أن لا يمر يوم دون أن يكتبوا فيه شيئا من العلم كثر أو قل، ولا عدوا هذا اليوم ضياعا وغبنا. وفي هذا روي الأثر: إذا أتى علي يوم لم أزدد فيه علما يقربني من الله عز وجل فلا بورك لي في طلوع الشمس ذلك اليوم. He says, or this, it says here in the Mukhtasar, in the early Muslims, the pious predecessors, they were very diligent to make the best out of their time and to make the best out of their lives. And every day that passed by, they wanted to make sure that they wrote something down. They got some type of fa'idah. They got some type of benefit, whether it's a little bit or a lot. And if they didn't get anything, if they didn't learn anything, if they didn't obtain any knowledge, then they considered that they lost out on that day. And they were cheated out of that day, and it was an unlucky day for them. There was no barakah in that day for them. And that's the well-known athar in which we say, or in which one of the Salaf al-Salih, he said, every day in which I don't increase in knowledge, I don't learn something that gets me closer to Allah, then there's no barakah from sunrise to sunset for me. Period. I have no barakah that day. Think about this statement. Most of us, we say this when it comes to money. I don't make any money this day, it's not a good day, it's a slow day, it's a bad day. Or I didn't see my friend, or I didn't get on social media, or this person didn't say hi to me and give me a hug and a handshake. Or I didn't get this food or this or that from the dunya. He says, if I didn't learn anything out of 24 hours, what barakah can there be for me? Think about this statement now. We have days that pass by without learning anything. A week, a month, a year, a decade, in which you haven't learned anything. You're still stuck on the same speed that you were 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago. That's scary. That's tremendously scary. If you just think about all of that time going by and you have nothing that gets you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There lies no doubt. The barakah is little or none. Waliyadu billah. Moving forward, is a line of poetry that's quoted here. إذا مر بي يوم ولم أستفد هدى ولم أكتسب علما فما هو من عمري. The poet, he said, when a day passes by and I don't learn more guidance, I don't get any more knowledge, that day is not from my life. That wasn't a day in my life. Listen to the statement. That really wasn't my life. That's not for my true life. If I didn't get closer to Allah via beneficial knowledge. Moving forward. Khairan, inshallah. That's what I wanted to mention now. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Before we move forward. What's important is, brothers and sisters, is that these are profound gems that each and every one of us can relate to. We can all relate to them, and all of them are practical. If it's something that I've learned, did I learn it correctly? If it's something that I've learned, did I get all of it? Have I understood it properly? If it's something that I've learned, how much of it have I forgotten? If it's something that I've learned, how much of it am I acting upon and implementing? If it's something that I've learned and I've implemented and I've understood properly, how many people have I invited to? How many people have I called to that beneficial knowledge? Hey, come check this out. I've read this, I've studied this. Won't you do the same? And last but not least, something that I've learned, something that, alhamdulillah, I've put into practice, something that I'm calling others to. How much fight do I have in me to continue doing these three things? Or do I quit and do I give up? Because they're not listening to me. Or they didn't want me to teach there. Or they didn't benefit from me. Or they made fun of me. Or they talked about me. Or the people are stubborn, they don't want to learn. They learn the hard way. So therefore I stopped teaching. I stopped calling. I stopped inviting. Because some type of harm, some type of annoyance, or at worst, it didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. If you don't have all four of these things, then you have lost. And the proof of that is what Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. By the time, all men will lose. All men are losers. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. He's in loss. Except, and that's a very strong Quranic style, is that Allah affirms something and then He excludes. Allah, He didn't say the believers, those who do, and then the rest are losers. But He made the default khasara. Loss is first, being excluded from that loss, secondary. As the Prophet ﷺ narrates to us, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ibadi, kullukum dalun illa man hadaytuhu, fastahduni ahdikum. He says, oh my servants, you're all astray. You're all unaware. You're all not upon what you're supposed to be upon, except for those whom I guide. Ask of my guidance, and that's what you shall receive. I'll guide you. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that man is in loss. That's the asl, that's the default. And then He says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except for those who have the four things. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except for those who believe. And how do you believe if you don't know? What are you believing in? What testimony can you make except you know what you saw or what you heard? What can you believe in? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, oh my Lord, show me how you give life to the dead. Show me how you resurrect the dead. Allah says, have you not believed? He said, Bala, of course I have believed, oh my Lord, I believe in you. However, I want my heart, لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي, I want my heart to be at rest. What did Allah tell him? قَالَ فَخُذْ, He says, take those birds, split them up, place them there, call them back, يَأْتِينَكَ سَعْيًا, and they'll run back to you. Know for sure that Allah Azza wa Jalla is Azizun Hakim, Almighty, All-Wise. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, his belief and his yaqeen and his tuma'nina, his tranquility and serenity, it had to be based off of what? Something that he saw, some type of tangible knowledge. So Allah says, except for those who believe, and the condition of belief is ilm. What do you believe in if you don't know? إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and those who work righteousness, i.e., those who implement what they've learned. They've read, they've heard, they've studied, they've benefited, and then they implement and they act upon it. وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and then tawasaw, they trade, they share wasiyah. They give advice to each other bil-haq, with the truth. Do this because it's the truth, inshallah. Don't do that, akhi, ummi, ukhti, zawji, zawjati, because that's not the truth. Tawasaw bil-haq. And last but not least, wa tawasaw bis-sabr. And then they also tell each other to be patient. Just stick it out. Be patient. It's not that bad. You can make it. You can go through, so on and so forth. So these are the four ingredients of salvation from loss. The four ingredients from salvation from loss. And this is something that has to be on your mind on a daily basis. When you wake up, what have I learned? What have I implemented? How have I invited and called others around me? How have I improved the quality of life of the Muslims and non-Muslims around me? And most importantly, do I have the sabr? Or do I do it for a day and quit? Do it for a year and quit? Do it for a month and give up? Because of the adha, the harm of the people and the annoyance of the people, hurting you physically, talking about you, hurting you with your words, cutting you with knives or with tongues, a switchblade or an actual tongue. Someone cuts you and slashes you and they say something about you, or they may do physical harm to you. So it's extremely important for each and every one of us. And this is what I wanted to share with my brothers and sisters here at Masjid Taqwa, and for the brothers and sisters all around the world, those who are watching and listening. We ask Allah Ta'ala us to implement this and to practice this. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.